Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Well-respected, well-loved.
Remembering Pastor Tom Chung, the father of 3 killed in a fiery crash at the border. Also,
I think it's a good idea to kind of hone in on anyone who's speeding.
While the government insists new intersection speed cameras aren't photo radar, and
the criminal case against Ms. Meng is based on allegations that are simply untrue.
Back to court. Meng Wanzhou's lawyers argue there's no basis for her extradition to the U.S.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
good evening. He was a respected local pastor and married father of 3 from Richmond.
Tom Chung has been identified as the driver who died in that fiery crash last week at the Peace Arch border crossing. As the CBC's Tina Lovegreen reports, friends are now trying to help the family of the man who once helped them through difficult times.
Caring, compassionate person. Tom is very sensitive, a very caring person, so people just love him.
Peter Tate remembers his friend and fellow pastor, Tom Chung.
We knew the family since 1997 in a church setting. I was the family pastor then, actually.
Now he's tasked with the difficult job of consoling them as they deal with his death.
They just collapse, and especially when there are too many uncertainties and unknowns. So they are confused.
Chung died on May 2nd. According to Tay, he had crossed the border to pick up some religious books he ordered.
Let's come around the back.
On his return, a Porsche Cayenne SUV hit his Toyota Sienna minivan at the Peace Arch border. The crash caused a massive explosion, and Chung died on the scene. The driver of the Porsche was from Washington State. He was arrested but later released. The Surrey RCMP is still investigating. Chung came to Canada from Hong Kong in 1996 and lived in Richmond with his wife and 3 children, the youngest, who is 12. He was the sole breadwinner for the family and had quit his job in sales to preach at 2 different churches, including this church in Port Moody, where he served for over 10 years.
I've been hearing stories like how many families have been blessed by his sacrifice, commitment and love.
Now his parishioners are reaching back by raising money to help the family with funeral expenses as they use their faith and community to pull through this difficult time.
Have faith, have hope, and continue to experience God's love through others.
Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Richmond.
The province is defending its decision to use red light intersection cameras to catch speeders, saying it's all in the name of safety.
But as Rafferty Baker reports, critics are calling it a photo radar-like cash grab.
The intersections already have automatic red light enforcement cameras, and by summer, they'll also be outfitted with equipment to catch speeders.
I think it's a good idea.
An automated red light camera is a cash grab. A person has discernment, discretion, fairness. Those cameras, they're
If I'm speeding, I should get pulled over, I think. They should look for people talking on their cell phones, too.
The provincial government says in the last 4 years, it's detected more than 10,000 drivers per year speeding through the 140 intersections where red light cameras are installed. But the BC Liberals' critic for public safety says red light runners are to blame for most crashes.
The intended purpose of those cameras was to reduce intersection crashes. It appears they may be repurposing it to gain some extra revenue from speeders, perhaps.
For lawyer Kyla Lee, who specializes in road-related cases, there are problems with the plan. She says not telling the public the speed at which the cameras are set puts people at a disadvantage when challenging tickets in court.
They're not releasing to the public the information about what the threshold is when the camera is going to be triggered.
We have no plans, as neither does any other province, release what the speed is at which the camera is activated. But we've been really clear. 1, these intersections are online. 2, you guys have shown them on TV where the intersections are. 3, there's going to be signs, warning signs, telling you you're entering an intersection that's got a camera.
There are also complaints that a human being won't be on hand to monitor the equipment. as was part of the old photo radar system in the province.
When it comes to the mechanics of measuring speed, it's actually very important to getting a reliable speed reading to have a contemporaneous visual estimate to ensure that the speed reading obtained on the device is accurate.
The government says the important thing is reducing crashes in the province, more than 900 a day. And nearly 2/3 of the crashes are happening at intersections, many involving pedestrians. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou was back in court today and met by protesters urging Canada to expedite her extradition.
Inside the courtroom, though, her lawyers argued there's no basis for any extradition at all. A spectacle outside Meng Wanzhou's Vancouver home. Unfazed by the noise, the Huawei CFO remaining silent, accompanied by her private security detail. On the steps of the courthouse, protesters waited for Meng's arrival, calling for her immediate extradition and the release of Canadian diplomats detained in China.
Canada should stand strong because there is the evidence what the U.S. government claim for Meng Wanzhou, Huawei, and then Canada should extradite Meng Wanzhou to U.S.
Meanwhile, Meng made her way into court through a different entrance, avoiding protesters altogether. The billionaire businesswoman is out on $10 million bail, but she's under house arrest in Vancouver pending the extradition hearing. Today, her legal team asked that she be allowed to move from her current Dunbar home to her mansion in Vancouver's exclusive Shaughnessy neighborhood. They argue it has a better security setup. The lawyers also told the judge the CFO's arrest and detention are unlawful and there's no basis for her extradition.
Furthermore, it was stated that the political factors at play during the extradition process may lead to serious violation of justice.
A Huawei representative reiterating the lawyers' arguments.
Ms. Meng's legitimate rights may also be harmed. Thus, Ms. Meng intends to apply to the court for a stay of the extradition proceedings.
The argument on that won't be heard until January of next year. In the meantime, Meng will be back at one of her 2 homes in Vancouver. Well, more bombshells on the effects of money laundering on BC real estate are expected to be shared tomorrow.
Attorney General David Eby confirming you can also expect recommendations.
The trend around money laundering has been in British Columbia that when we look, we find disturbing information, and I don't think these reports are any exception. The reason we commissioned these reports was to get this information out to the public, and I'm glad that we're able to do it as quickly as we have been.
Peter German's previous report looked into the relationship between money laundering and BC casinos. CBC will have the latest details as they come out tomorrow.
The caretaker of an old Victoria hotel is still missing tonight, 2 days after the building went up in flames. The Victoria Plaza Hotel was sitting vacant when it caught fire earlier this week. Fire crews say there's no indication caretaker Mike Drager was in the building that morning, but he was known to sometimes stay there. The building's owner is now helping police with the search. The future of the site, meanwhile, remains in question.
There's no confidence right now in any of the structural elements of that facility there. So you can see that all of the structural beams have burnt. Lots of them have gone down already. And a lot of them are wet with heavy loads up high.
Complicating matters, the fact that heritage buildings like this have tunnels under the sidewalk used as storage spaces in the 1800s. City Hall, meanwhile, remained closed today for smoke remediation, but may reopen tomorrow.
We're learning more about that deadly plane crash north of Smithers over the weekend. About 3 hours into the flight, the pilot sent a mayday call, but quickly after, all communication was lost. You can see here, we're also getting a first look at the crash site near the Babine River. The crash happened on Saturday, leaving 3 passengers dead. The pilot is in hospital. The group was doing aerial mapping for the BC Wildfire Service at the time.
A Surrey MLA is putting forward a private member's bill he says will give police more power to tackle gang violence in BC.
If passed, the legislation would make it an offense for anyone to drive with an illegal firearm in the province of BC on the public motorways.
SBC Liberal MLA Marvin Hunt, who's behind the proposed bill. If it goes ahead, drivers found with an illegal firearm in their car would face up to 6 months in prison, a fine of up to $10,000, and a 1-year driver's license suspension. Repeat offenders would face stiffer penalties.
The conversation we had with law enforcement is that the only tool they have today is to confiscate the firearm. Everyone in the vehicle gets to say, oh, it's not mine. I didn't know it was here. And they can do absolutely nothing. All they can do is confiscate the firearm. So this is to bring consequences to those who are operating that vehicle for that firearm being in the vehicle. With us.
Hunt was joined by the organizers of Wake Up Surrey, a citizen-formed group behind a massive anti-gang rally at City Hall last summer. They're calling the bill a step in the right direction, and they're urging all major political parties in the province to come together and create a plan to address gang violence.
Well, in one BC community, there is very little debate about short-term rental properties.
It is, of course, a hot-button issue in Vancouver, where about 1% of homes are listed on Airbnb. But in Whistler, more than 18% of private dwellings are listed on the popular site.
Justin McElroy reports on why just up Highway 99, short-term rentals don't get residents revved up.
In most cities, if you said that 1 of every 5 private dwellings were being listed on Airbnb, you'd probably have a political crisis. But in Whistler?
It's intentionally that way.
Mayor Jack Crompton won with no competition last year. The resort town faces a perennial housing crunch, but they're always trying to balance that with having enough places for visitors.
There's no question about whether or not we've committed resources to offering tourism accommodation. We have.
Of the 17 communities CBC measured, Whistler had by far the highest percentage of properties listed on the site, and the second highest number of listings managed by a multi-seller. But the city believes new regulations put in place 2 years ago strike an appropriate balance. In certain areas of the municipality, like Whistler Village, every single residential unit is zoned for temporary accommodation. But then there are areas like this, which aren't zoned for temporary accommodation, and where new laws by the municipality have ensured that Airbnb listings are barely able to be found. When you map out every single property on Airbnb, the difference is stark. Areas zoned for tourists are flooded with options, and those zoned for residents aren't. But note those red dots on quiet cul-de-sacs.
There's still people out there that are renting short-term vacation rentals in residential areas and in suites that really should be out there for long-term transient workers that are here to service all the people.
Cheryl Waters' company helps manage over 500 properties, all in tourist-zoned areas. She says the city could crack down more on those ignoring the law, but the community can't be compared to most cities.
Vancouver's not used to as many short-term private rentals as Whistler is. I mean, it's just the way of life here.
So while there's plenty of talk of affordable housing here, the realities of a resort town march on. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Whistler.
Okay, there are exotic pets, and then there's just plain unusual.
Which is what a vet in Maple Ridge was presented with this week. A Vancouver woman brought this scorpion into the veterinarian. She's not sure how she ended up with it, but she said she did come back from Cuba last month, so it may have hitched a ride in her luggage. Scorpions can also sometimes be found in some produce or California-grown plants. This particular scorpion is venomous and will be sent to the Victoria Bug Zoo. It is believed to be pregnant and is expected to have babies in 3 to 4 months. You can read more about the surprise discovery on our website, cbc.ca/BC.
Yeah, the Victoria Bug Zoo, probably a better place than your
I can barely even read that story without cringing.
That story is even for me kind of jaw-dropping. It just kept getting like more and more crazy as time went on.
All the babies that you're picturing.
Venomous too.
Yeah, great. Just add it to the list. Okay, well, we need to balance out that with some good news. The heat is still here. It's not happening. It's not changing, rather. Everything is still going to be nice for the next few days. So I did want to mention that. But let's take a quick look at what we had first thing this morning across the city. As usual, a nice kind of start to the day. A few clouds today compared to yesterday, but we did end up seeing the skies break throughout much of the day. It was quite beautiful out there. Temperatures feeling a lot milder, I think, too, compared to what we had been seeing. And this is great because this is the trend for the next few days. And one of the things that I wanted to point out for you, watch this. This is our temperature forecast for the overnight period. Do you remember a time not too long ago where seeing 12s and 14s were our daytime highs? Yeah, gone are those days. Instead, we're now looking at temperatures like this, 22, 24, out to the Tri-Cities down toward New West Surrey. We're at 25. For record, these temperatures here are more synonymous with what we'd be experiencing normally in July and August. So that just tells you how this heat is going on. And all across the province, really, you're going to notice that too, along Vancouver Island and well up into the BC piece. Now, this does come with a bit of a price, and every day I do bring this to your attention that it's necessary to look at what our fire danger rating is across the province. One thing you'll notice, gone is the fact that we don't have any more low ratings. Everything is at least moderate or higher. And in fact, down toward Vancouver Island, even Victoria itself now lies into a very high rating. This is all because of the high pressure that we've had across our coast, and it's preventing any rain from coming. No surprise there. We still have a surprise record that we could potentially be beating, 23 degrees on Friday. And in addition to that, we've got quite a lot of beautiful temperatures for the next little while. Temperatures feeling more like summer, as I said, 22s, 23s, looking quite nice with a lot of sunshine all throughout the next couple of days.
Very solid. Thanks, Brett.
You're welcome.
Okay, the newest royal slept through his big debut today as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle introduced their newborn son to the world.
His name, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. Archie is not a traditional royal name, but one of the most popular in England right now.
And the CBC's Dominic Valitis is finding out how people are reacting to that.
So a busy day for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, a busy day too for their new baby boy. First there was that big photo opportunity here in Windsor, and then news of a name. In a statement released on social media channels, palace officials said the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are delighted to announce that they have named their son Archie Harrison. So Archie Harrison it is. Here's how people in Windsor reacted to the news.
We never expected them to be traditional, as in, following royal prestige or whatever. Good for them to choose what they wanted.
I think Archie's a lovely British name and Harrison sounds American, so a nice compromise.
I was kind of glad to see that they seemed to do what they wanted to do. I think it's lovely.
So the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have opted for a more modern name. No word of any title for their new baby boy either, so it looks like they have rejected that, as Princess Anne did with her 2 children. But it is the final piece in the puzzle in the story of this royal birth. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, as he is now known, was born on Monday the 6th of May 2019 at 5:26 a.m, weighing 7 pounds and 3 ounces. He is the Queen's 8th great-grandchild and 7th in line to the throne. Dominic Valitis, CBC News, Windsor.
Quite the handle. I like Archie. That's good.
It's not bad. Yeah, it works.
Apparently somebody doesn't like it all that much.
I don't mind it. I'm indifferent.
But it is, as they said, it's really popular right now in the UK. Okay, that's all the royal baby news we have for you right now. In fact, that's all the news we have for you right now.
Yes, that's it. That's the end of our show. You can always find our news program online, cbc.ca/BC, and we will have a full newscast after the hockey game tonight.
Probably around 9 o'clock, National at 10. Dan Bird's here at 11.
Yeah, keep track of it all.
Good
night.